Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by The Art of Education, and I'm your host, Andrew McCormick. So Tim has been ribbing me for some time that we need to do a sculpture-specific podcast, as I must have mentioned at some point that I have my MFA in sculpture. I don't think that I mentioned to Tim, though, how big and weird and kind of funky and intentionally aesthetically weird my sculpture work is, but he doesn't know that. But it is a passion of mine to bring sculpture to my class and my students. So I brought him on recently, and we went super long. Like, this may end up being the longest podcast we've ever recorded. So I need to get right to that interview. But before I do, I want to remind you all again that the Art Ed Now conference is taking place next week on August 3rd. Now, you've probably heard that Sir Ken Robinson is going to be giving the featured presentation. You can see all the details at artednow.com. I also want to tell you about one of the sponsors for the conference, Artsonia. You all know that for 15 years, Artsonia has been committed to helping teachers get more technology into their classrooms. With just one iPad, an entire class of students can create digital portfolios on Artsonia. During the conference, Jennifer Sims will be presenting on ways that you can utilize those digital portfolios to showcase artwork, manage your projects and curriculum, map standards, assess growth, fundraise, and advocate for your program. Best of all, Artsonia will be giving away 2 iPad minis during the conference, which is totally awesome. Make sure you register for the conference if you haven't already at artednow.com. All right, get your blowtorches and sculpt a mold ready. Tim and I are going way into sculpture with this one. All right, Tim, thanks for coming on, man. We're talking sculpture-specific ideas here. How you doing today?
I am doing really well. I am excited to talk about sculpture. This is going to be good.
Yeah, it seems like those media-specific podcasts that we've been doing, like drawing, printmaking, are really well received. So I was excited to do a sculpture one because that's kind of near and dear to my heart. So I'll start you off right off the bat, throwing you way back in the time machine. I want you to go back in time to when you were an elementary school teacher. Rack your brain. What were some of your favorite elementary sculpture projects?
Oh man, that's good. I think with elementary, my kids were always fascinated when they could make something that they could use. Okay, so anytime we could do clay and they could do a cup or a mug or a bowl, like an ice cream bowl or a cereal bowl, they went crazy over that kind of stuff. And so they always loved that type of sculpture. And then I would always really enjoy just having them build things out of cardboard. Like, kids love to build out of cardboard. They love doing cardboard robots, things like that. And when, I would be able to see a class for a while and, their classroom teacher didn't mind, all sorts of sculptures kind of taking over their room, we would do like these collaborative cities. Like, one time I taught a summer school class just for 3 weeks where kids built a city. It's like Sim City in real life when you're actually like making all the sculptures, and they would build these skyscrapers and these schools and these parks and these churches, and would just do these incredible types of things that they absolutely loved, absolutely get into. And, anything like that is wonderful for them. But I think more than anything, kids just love building with their hands because they have so few opportunities to do that. They have so few chances to experience that. And so I don't think that the project that you do is necessarily as important. Just the fact that you're giving kids those experiences and giving them the opportunity to build, to create, to do sculpture is really what you want to do.
Man, dude, we got a whole podcast here. Don't give away the goods right away. Because you basically just said why sculpture is so important. And I totally agree with you. And I have to comment on that before we'll kind of keep going with the nitty gritty, brass tacks here. Maker education and STEAM education and tinkerer and hack education, all of that stuff has its like origins in sculpture, like making something that really exists in this 3-dimensional world. And it's just kind of funny that like maker spaces and maker ed is like so trendy or hot and popular. It's like, dude, like, get some scrap wood and a hammer and some cardboard and like yes. and some duct tape. Like, you got it. And we've been doing that for a long time. And then it kind of gets driven out as we're all so obsessed with, tests and accountability and all this junk. But it's like, you're right. Kids need the time and space and materials to just like mess around and like make some cool stuff, because they don't get that much anymore. Okay, and I also have to call you out on this. When you said Sim City, I think you totally just dated yourself there, man.
Oh man, that should be.
I mean, now it's like Minecraft,
Yes.
and I mean, come on, Sim City.
Hey, I taught the class a long time ago, and also I'm old, so whatever excuse you want to give, that's fine. But
the funny thing is, you could take those same ideas of Sim City, let's make a city, and you could just you could hop into an elementary school right now and be like, hey, we're going to make a Minecraft village. And what does a village have?
Yeah.
And it'd still be like the same idea of how to build with cardboard and all of this stuff and streets. So,
yeah.
Okay. So let's move forward then. Let's talk about favorite secondary sculpture projects you've ever done.
Yes, I am in. My least favorite project, but the one that is probably my kids' favorite, is, I don't know if you've seen those figures that are made completely with packing tape, like the clear packing tape.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I hate those. They're so boring, and I've seen them so many times, but my kids absolutely love the process. They love the end result, and it's always new to them. So we always enjoy doing those sculptures. I enjoy anything that has to do with kind of unexpected materials. And so, I love just throwing some random stuff at kids and seeing what they put together, or just, like we've done sculptures out of hot glue, which is absolutely fantastic. It gets expensive, so I think I did a donor's choose to just buy like tons and tons of hot glue to make all these great sculptures. But it really gets kids thinking about how to do things a little bit differently and how to craft something, three-dimensionally with hot glue. Like it's a good challenge for them. But then I always love doing any kind of advanced sculpture or large-scale sculpture. So, anything large-scale with, cardboard, whatever other materials work well, but it's usually cardboard. Anything that's like life-size or huge, I love doing. I had one of my kids build a couch out of cardboard, which was pretty spectacular, like strong enough to sit on, like full-size cardboard couch, which was pretty awesome. But then, like, as far as advanced projects, anything like slip casting with ceramics or doing things with plaster molds, my kids go crazy for all of that kind of stuff, and they really, really enjoy that. So, what about you? I know you have quite the background in sculpture, which I don't know if you bragged about that in the intro or not, but if not, you should do that in the closing. But yeah, I know you have a lot of experience. You've taught it forever. You've done a ton yourself. So, what are some of your favorites?
Wait, I still can't get over the fact that you don't like the packing tape figurative sculptures. I mean, what's wrong with you, man? That's a cool project.
No, it is a cool project. I'm just tired of it, like if you teach something for way too many years, like it gets boring. Like I don't want it to be a staple of my classroom, but my kids do. And so you just have to keep doing it over and over, even if you don't like it. So
yeah, I think the tape figurative sculpture is the victim of like becoming too popular. It's kind of like the pop song that you like the first time you hear it, and then after the 200th time, you're like, oh my god, again with Bruno Mars. Like, gosh, okay.
But everybody hearing it for the first time loves that song, and it's the same way with the sculpture.
Well, and it's also like it's big, it's flashy, it's unusual for people who don't have, their finger on the pulse of art education to know that like a lot of people are doing this now.
Right.
It is funny to think about those projects that kind of get popular. I thought you were going to say the one that you hate but students love, which is another project that kind of has had a big splash and everyone seems to do it, is the coat hanger pantyhose and a block of wood, and then you stretch it over and you paint it. And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with that. I've never actually done it with students because I feel like it's what I call a little black dress. Like everyone looks good in a little black dress. You know what I mean? Like even I would look good in a little black dress.
Yes.
That's what I always tell people. There's kind of like Wait, now everyone is like visualizing this, and I'm like a tall dude and, a little doughy. It's not a good visual. I'm sorry, people. Um, but it's like, I kind of feel like there's no way to fail with that sculpture.
Yeah.
I do this, I do this, I do this, I paint it. Awesome. And I remember this is going way back to when I was like doing field experience. So this is even like pre, student teaching. I had a cooperating teacher who's like, well, I don't really like your lesson because there's no way for the students to fail. And at the time I was like,
You're like, wait, that means it's a great lesson. Yes.
Yeah, you're crazy. That means I'm the best teacher ever. And it's only been, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years where I've noticed like, oh, I totally get what she was talking about. Like, this is so vacuum sealed, airtight, slam dunk. They're not really learning anything because like it's so safe and guaranteed hit that they're not really going to learn anything. So that's kind of my beef with that project. And I don't mean to throw aspersions to anyone who's doing that project, because I do think there are some ways that you can jazz up that lesson plan where it gets a little more interesting, a little cooler. So one of my favorite projects, and it's really weird, and it's not anything that like looked cool, but it was, I think, really memorable and really fun. And the kids had to think in like really different ways. And it was kind of like my first salvo into this idea of like special effects art or costumes. I did this project that I called the Gauntlet, where students had to make cardboard armor that would actually fit a member in their class. So the idea, we kind of looked at like feudalism and knights, and we did like a drawing project before then, which was like contemporary family shields or family crests. And it was kind of a fun project. And I was like, all right, now we're going to take this drawing, we're going to put it like on our armor that we're actually going to make out of cardboard, and you have to wear it. And I realized that students, some of them would not be into like putting on armor and, making weapons and helmets. So what I did was I partnered them up with like, okay, you're a knight and you're going to wear the armor, and then you're a squire and you're going to help build the armor
Yes.
to go up. I was really into it at this time. I think I was like into season 4 of like Game of Thrones. And
Right.
I was like, all the houses and all of this, but it was really fun because they had to actually do a lot of like what I would consider to be STEAM education. Okay, measure this. Okay, if I cut the cardboard here and fold it here, that's not going to be the right size, and you need to put a dart in it. And here's what a dart looks like. It's a triangle. So we built some armor, we built some helmets, we built some weapons. We then went into the gym, and I let the knights kind of like beat the crap out of each other. And it was like super, super fun. Now, the photos, there's a handful of photos out there floating around somewhere. It's not like great sculpture. It's not like, oh, look at this beautiful piece of artwork. It was a process. It was a memorable experience. And I think it taught them a lot. So that was a big hit for me. So I really like that one. I haven't been brave enough to do that one in a bunch of years because it was really time consuming. It was really a space hog. It just ate up my classroom space to have all this like armor and weapons sitting around. I actually also had a girl who got kind of smacked in the face pretty hard.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, I was like, are we safe here?
It was mostly safe. And then right at the end, there was one person who kind of got stupid and smacked this girl like kind of hard on accident. Like, this was a nice kid who did this. And she was kind of banged up a little bit. And I took her to the nurse, and I was like, I saw like my professional career like going out in front of my eyes. I was like, I'm going to get fired. My children are going to be homeless and not eat. And this girl was like the nicest girl in the world. She's like, yeah, my nose hurts, but that was really fun and awesome. And I called the mom that night, and I was like, I'm so, so incredibly sorry. I can't believe this happened. And that was probably stupid of me to say. It's like I gave students like cardboard weapons and let them like screw around in the gym for like 20 minutes. What the hell did I think was going to happen? But she was like, no, that you are her favorite teacher. Your class is her favorite class. Like, it's totally fine. I was like, oh, awesome. So like danger can be a part of a classroom and we can be okay. But it all turned out well. But I think if I'm going to do the gauntlet again, I have to figure out some ways to make it a little bit more foolproof and safe and all of that stuff. But okay, I want to switch gears up here a little bit. I think from here on out, we've been talking for a while. I've been talking about that gauntlet project for too long. No more talking about ceramics. We can't talk about ceramics. We have to only talk about sculpture that doesn't use ceramics, because ceramics is like its whole world unto itself with all the tools and techniques and issues that come with that. So I started using Sculptamold, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I had never used it before then. I didn't know what the heck it was. I thought it was kind of weird. I am a total convert. I love Sculptamold. It's like pulverized paper that you just get wet. There's very little mess or cleanup. And it's awesome. And I really love it. And it dries super hard. You can sand it. You can paint it. It's like paper mache, but way less messy. And it's super cool. Pretty cheap. You can even make homemade Sculptamold. There's like lots of recipes online about how to make pulverized paper pulp. But here's the thing. You have to be very careful about using Sculptamold that it does not actually mold on you, because you can, if you use like too much or you don't use the right armature, you can basically like trap a lot of moisture inside of that stuff. And all of a sudden your student sculptures can look like a chia pet head and like start growing like fuzzy stuff off the top of it. And that is not good.
Yeah.
That ruins everybody's like semester. And I actually had that happen just last year. And I was like, man, I've been doing this too long to make that mistake. But students were putting it on too thick. And then because we were kind of tight for storage, they were putting it away in these closets and then closing the door. And the combination of that moisture and that dark, we'd open it the next day and they're like, Mr. McCormick, why is my sculpture fuzzy? I was like, oh my God. So, okay. Here's the big takeaway from that. We built armatures and we were doing this figurative work, and I did wire armature, and then we fleshed it out with paper. Then we put the Sculptamold on the paper. Well, the paper, the first layer of paper was what got moldy. If I were going to do that project again, I'd do wire armature, aluminum foil as sort of the first layer to bulk out some of the kind of volume, and then put the Sculptamold on, because then there's really nothing other than the Sculptamold to like take the moisture and to get wet. And I think you would solve a lot of your mold issues by using aluminum foil instead of a like newspaper armature. So man, we got real nerdy right there on armature and all that stuff. So I hope people are still with us.
That's because right, I'm feeling like you're saying the big takeaway is, you know, how to work with armatures and choosing the correct materials. But honestly, I think everybody's big takeaway is that you are a crazy teacher who lets kids beat the crap out of each other and grows mold on his sculptures. So
danger is the spice of the art room, man. You got to have a little danger every once in a while.
All right, fair enough.
So we've talked elementary, we've talked secondary at length. Let's talk just in general, weirdest project you've ever done. Or maybe you haven't done a weird sculpture project, but there's like a project that you want to do someday and you're just like, if only I could figure out, you know, XYZ, I'm going to do this sculpture project.
Yeah, okay. So this actually kind of follows up pretty well with your armature idea and your figurative sculpture. With my seniors one year, or actually a couple of years we did this, we looked at Dwayne Hansen. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but just the super realistic life-size sculptures. It's like photorealism, but come to life in 3 dimensions. And so I had kids build these life-size figures. And so we used chicken wire to create the armature and then wrap that with, just some paper. And then over the top of that, we actually went to Goodwill and went shopping for clothes for these figures. And so they would just buy these clothes and put them over the figures, and then, you know, shoes, socks, everything. And then the parts that were left exposed were hands and faces. And so we actually did like plaster casts of the hands, and then I would have kids sculpt the faces in plaster as well. And so we have literally these life-size figures that are all dressed as normal, but then their hands and their faces are made of plaster, and they were just just some spectacular projects. And I quit doing it because it was so time consuming. Like we spent literally months on these things, but they were absolutely incredible. So that's probably the biggest, weirdest thing that I've done. And I wouldn't mind revisiting those again sometime.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
What about you?
Nope. I got to hear more about these sculptures.
Okay.
First.
All right.
Do they still exist? I mean, how does something like that go home? That's a problem I've had with some of my big sculptures that are collaborative. Is students are like, well, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Where do those exist now?
Well, a couple of them lived in the art room for a long time. A couple people took them home with them. They just get loaded up into the back of a truck, and who knows where they go from there. Like, that's one of the benefits of teaching high school. You just say, hey, you have to take this home. Let's stuff it in the back of your car and get it out of here. And then they can deal with it from there. So, who knows where they are.
You say that they were super cool, but come on. They were a little bit creepy, right?
They were super creepy. Like, our custodian was really disconcerted. Like, he'd come in the room and think there were people in there, or people who hadn't seen us working on these sculptures would come in, and just like this weird thing in the corner would scare the crap out of them. Like, at first glance, they look like people, which is a great reaction. So, yeah.
Okay, now I will tell you. So I have for a number of years done a styrofoam head zombie project that was inspired by my love of this TV show on Sci-Fi called Face Off. Not the Nicolas Cage movie where he loses his face, but it's kind of like Project Runway meets special effects, makeup, and costuming. It's awesome. I really love it. And at the time I launched this project, I think it was like season 1 or season 2, and now they're up to like season 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And a lot of my students were like, I'm loving the show. And I wanted to kind of tap into that. And they were really cool and really fun. And I think I would still be doing it now if I didn't have some budgetary constraints. Cause, buying a styrofoam head that's, at most $5 and at as cheap as $3.50 when you have a bunch of kids that's a budget killer right there.
Oh, so yeah.
I'd like at some point, if I'm taking that to the next level, to maybe work with my IT department and say, like, listen, can we take one positive, like, plaster mold of a human face, and then, like, can we make a styrofoam cast of that? Like, there is a way that you can, like, take polystyrene beads and then, like, mold that into your mold, which then, I mean, that starts getting cross-curricular, collaborative. Yeah. Kind of a STEAM lesson to have students like, hey, this is polystyrene and it's different than polyurethane and we're going to make a mold of it. So I think at some point I'd like to morph that into it, but that project is kind of like the gateway project for me thinking about special effects art classes that I want to start teaching. So I've been doing a lot of research on like special effects makeup, how to take I think it's polyurethane foam, the stuff that's like, like mats on the floor that you can step on that are kind of squishy. A lot of daycare centers have them. You can like heat that stuff up and then like bend it, and then it like cools and it stays in that form. A lot of people make armor and weapons and stuff like that. So I'm back to kind of the gauntlet idea, but maybe making it a little less of a fight in the gym and more like, hey, let's make super cool like foam armor that would look like super cool and believable like in a movie, like special effects type of stuff. So that's actually where I'm wanting to go in the next year or two with some of my sculpture curriculum.
I like that. But, at the same time, though, I feel like we're talking about all of these crazy advanced projects. So let me ask you, like, what are some more of the basic things that you think are worthwhile that, people can dive into before they start going crazy with gauntlets and melting styrofoam and building life-size sculptures?
Yeah. So I think just familiarizing students with reductive carving. So here's a block of foam, here's a block of plaster, let's carve it, and that can be done in clay too. I'm not going to say we can't talk about clay at all, but that presents its own things. But reductive, additive, let's do a Louis Nevelson sort of three-dimensional collage where we're taking found objects and layering it together and creating space. Let's work with some entry-level sculptural materials, like you'd mentioned, cardboard, but let's go wire armature. I mean, you can, with wire, really easily morph a two-dimensional drawing into a three-dimensional drawing. And I know that that's a pretty popular project out there. Found objects. So a book sculpture, taking a book and deconstructing it and doing something with it. Plaster, paper mache, the Sculptamold. Those are kind of some basic things that if you kind of start letting students play with. And one of the things I realized when I first started doing that zombie head, you know, when we do two-dimensional work, we often have our students do what first? We have them do sketching. In three-dimensional work, it's like, okay, maybe draw a two-dimensional sketch of what you want to do and now do it right away. Yeah. We don't let them have that time to like play and experiment with like, what would that look like in three-dimensional space? So if I had like a crazy budget, I'd have like 3 tons of like plasticine clay, like oil-based clay that you can just kind of play with. And then, okay, that's a model, smash it up. Someone else can do it now and use it again. I think that would be like really helpful because then it's like there's no stress involved. You don't grade this. It's like, here's your model. You made it. Take some photos. Now see if you can interpret that in plaster or armature or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think those are some really good ideas. If I can add just a couple basic things that I like to do, I think found object sculptures are fantastic. Just getting kids to the concept of taking these disparate materials, putting them together, creating some kind of a sculpture with them. And you mentioned working with cardboard. One thing that I love to do is have kids create polyhedrons. And we can link to this website that I love to use, but it is really simple to just have kids cut squares or cut triangles and put those together to make, you know, all of these different polyhedrons, whether it be as simple as cubes or like icosahedrons or all sorts of weird things. And you can do them any size you want. You can put multiple polyhedrons together to create other sculptures. And it's a real simple way to get started and get kids used to, you know, just working with the material and putting simple things together. But then you can scaffold that knowledge pretty easily and move on to some more advanced things. But I think that's always a good place to start.
Well, yeah, and that's a great tie-in with math and geometry, which, you know, kids.
Yes.
Oh, how can you like math and also be an artist? It's like, what is geometry other than like math art? Like, it's awesome, you know? So, exactly. Hey man, we've been going on for a long time here. I didn't know you were such a nerd about sculpture like I am.
Hey, I think wait, though, can I throw something out there just real quick? Sure. You, expert of sculpture, MFA in sculpture, all that good stuff. I have a little confession to make. I got through all of undergrad, without ever taking a sculpture or a ceramics class. And so all of this interest, all of this development has been self-taught stuff and things that I've been interested after I started teaching. How crazy is that?
Well, it's crazy, but it's not that crazy because I think you just spawned a new podcast topic, which is what the heck is wrong with art education teacher preparation? Because we're expected to know all of this stuff in the studio and in art history. Oh, and then also, by the way, let's learn how to motivate and corral all of these, you know, different types of learners. So the education side of it. And teachers come out of teacher prep colleges with huge blind spots in their preparation. Like, I know nothing about jewelry. Like, if you wanted me to do some like small metal stuff, I would be at a complete loss. Never did it. Like, I never had time to do it. So yeah, it's not that weird. And I think it's awesome though that you've kind of upped your game kind of just on your own, because that's what as teachers we have to do.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I'm fascinated. I mean, this is a whole nother 6 episodes we could do, but I'm just fascinated by what teachers don't know coming out of undergrad. And it is just trial by fire where, you know, when I moved from elementary to high school, I had to teach sculpture class. I had to teach ceramics class, and I had never done that. And so, you know, the first semester was pretty rough, but eventually I got into it and I really, really learned to love it. So, you know, hopefully, you know, other people in that situation can kind of find their interest as well. So, yeah.
Well, I have a couple more big questions, man, but I think if I ask this, we're going to be going on like the longest
That's okay.
episode ever.
Hey,
So
you know what? We do these deep dives, and these studio based ones are the long episodes that we can get away with. So hit me with it. Like what
okay,
else we
man.
got? All right.
I think this will separate the true fans from the novice fans if they're still listening at this point. I want to talk about some of the big obstacles, kind of like you're mentioning about, maybe someone who is not well versed in sculpture, why they've shied away from it. And I think that they can be twofold. I think space, right? So space and storage, let's call that one issue. And the other one would be safety.
Yes.
I don't feel that I can do this in a safe manner. So let's talk about those. Talk about some of the obstacles in storage and space and safety and how you've been able to overcome some of those things.
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with storage because I had, one of the greatest art rooms of all time. I think it was old, but it was huge. Like there's more square footage than my house has. So we had plenty of space to just build these crazy sculptures. And so that's always kind of fun. I know not everybody's that lucky, but I don't know that I have a lot of great ideas as far as storage goes, unless people just want to have an absolute disaster of a classroom like you do. But as far as safety issues, I think, there's a lot that needs to be dealt with depending on what, you're going to be doing. If we're doing cardboard, you need to worry about cutting. And if you're doing hot glue or you're melting anything with blowtorches or whatever, you need to worry about kids getting burned. And, the list goes on, but I think what you need to do more than anything is just make safety part of your demonstration and part of your teaching every single time. Like kids can't have enough reminders about being safe. And I think that's probably the key is you just need to make sure that you emphasize that in your teaching and on a day-to-day basis. And then if I can add just one other thing as far as obstacles go, I think budgeting is huge. Like we talked a lot about, cardboard and, a lot of those cheaper materials you can use. But, when you really want to do cool things like those styrofoam heads or tape sculptures or hot glue sculptures, that stuff gets expensive really, really quickly. And it really is kind of limiting. And so, if you can get donations, if you can do donors choose, if you can work with your PTA to get around some of those issues, then I think that obstacle is probably a little more surmountable. But, obviously you're not in the ideal situation when you're dealing with that as well. But yeah, let's dive into safety a little bit more. Like what do you do as far as safety goes when you're not letting kids hit each other in the face?
Well, okay, that was the low point of my student safety issues. That was the all-time low.
Fair enough.
For the most part, I do think I balance organized chaos and safety pretty well. I do a good job of explaining students up front, like here are the handful of tools that you can use, and here's the proper way to use it. And then I just tell kids like, hey, like when students are using the jigsaw, for example, I have a powered jigsaw. Like it's not too hardcore. I just tell the class, like if someone's going to use the jigsaw, that is the place where I am going to be. I'm going to be right next to that person, watching that person. So if you have a dumb little ticky-tack question about, does this color look good with this? Don't even ask me that right now. Because right now, like I'm dealing with people who are using power tools. So and students got pretty good at knowing, like, okay, if there's a group or a student who is using something sort of out of the norm, a tool or a device that's a little different, Mr. McCormick's going to be next to that person and don't like mess around or don't ask them questions at that time. I actually think ventilation and eye safety were some of the biggest things that I always worried about, because when you're talking about whether it's spray paint or melting something or even taking apart old technology. Like I used to do like steampunk lessons where we would take old VCRs and radios apart. Kids are, they love that. They love the destructive side of that. And they're just like, I'm going to take a hammer to this and smash it. And I'm like, and you're going to have shrapnel flying around the room.
Yes.
So you're going to do this outside. And at the time I had a patio, which was really nice to get to. This last year I did not have that, but I'm moving schools and I now have a really nice patio off the side of my new art room, which will be really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So to be mindful of those things, everyone needs to wear eye protection. You need to be outside. No, you can't do it that way because this is not safe. So when you're doing those projects, as a teacher, you have to be hyper alert and diligent with what kids are doing, and it'll work out fine. Now with eyewear, this is really nerdy, but like try to buy some or get some that like aren't super nerdy and disgusting.
Yes.
Because kids are like, I don't want to wear those. It's like, well, you may not like the way you look, but you're going to like a screw in the eyeball a whole lot less. Right. But I did just recently buy like a set of like 20 like kind of sleek, cool looking kind of eyewear that my students don't mind that much. And that kind of helped them buy into wearing them at all times when we're using tools. So
yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea.
With storage, it's tricky. I have photos of my room when it's been absolutely destroyed, and it's getting better every year. My new mantra is all clear everything. Like I just try to make sure that I have like a ton of like all clear bins with clear lids, and everything is labeled really well. So we try to get all the little PVC pieces go in this bin, and the wire and wire cutters go in this bin. And it seems to help. I know with this talk, we can be guilty of skewing a little bit secondary. I think if you're elementary and you want to go a wire armature or hot glue gun or X-Acto blades in like 5th and 6th grade, a little older, be very deliberate and intentional about what you show them. And then maybe there are some things that they don't need to do. So maybe they don't need to have the wire cutters and be cutting the wire themselves. Maybe you pre-cut some of the wire to eliminate some of the side effects that might happen with that. So again, I think it gets back to one of the things we talked about last week, which is like every teacher has to kind of evaluate their own classroom and needs and think about what does safety in your classroom and with your students look like.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice. And if I can just tell you also, it warms my heart to know that you're being organized and using clear containers. I just love hearing that.
Dude, you're rubbing off on me. I'm getting a lot better. It's actually Alicia who's the most, she's my guiding light when it comes to organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, let's kind of wrap this up. I want to just imagine a teacher out there who feels like, kind of like you did coming out of college, 3D is not my jam. I don't have a lot of experience, and we're going to give them some sources or artists or inspirations out there that they can look at. But I want you to think a little bit outside the box. So if you were to advise someone to go look at something maybe out of the norm for sculptural ideas, where would you send people?
Oh, man, I don't know if I want to go too far out of the norm, especially with people who are just starting. But I will say that, the best go-to is just looking at contemporary artists. There are so many incredible artists out there that have been making sculptures in the past 20, 30 years, and a bunch that are working today that just create these incredible things that can give you some inspiration for lessons you may want to put together, or give your kids some inspiration for things that they may want to do. Like we talked about those tape sculptures, and Mark Jenkins does a bunch of great things with that. Like Dwayne Hansen does some incredible things. I love Ai Weiwei and Maya Lin, and we talked about some of these a couple weeks ago on the contemporary artists episode. But yeah, if you just look at contemporary artists that are out there, there's just an endless supply of ideas that, like I said, can work for you or can work for your students. So what about you? Where does your inspiration come from?
Okay, so I stumbled across this guy's YouTube channel like about a week ago. Now, he's been a hero of mine for a long time, but I did not know that he had such an awesome YouTube channel. And it is Adam Savage, who is actually not an artist, but he's one of the guys in Mythbusters. And he's actually a big fan of art education and like hands-on practical education. And he's really interesting. He has a YouTube channel called Tested, and he has a lot of like 1-day sculptural projects. Now, they're not art so much as they're like contraptions and props and devices, but it's like just really cool to see sort of the stuff that he comes up with and the way that he handles things. So I love that channel. And I actually think there could be some really cool contemporary inspirations that a teacher could, look at that YouTube channel and pull into their classroom that would really spark their students' interest. So that's Tested by Adam Savage. It's a good one.
Yeah, I like that. We'll make sure we link that in the show notes. But I need to check that out myself as well. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on. I feel like I need a nap now. That was like a marathon session. I'm like burnt out on talking to you.
No doubt. But hopefully everybody stuck with us, and hopefully they found it worthwhile. So thanks for having me on.
Yep. We'll see you later, man. Bye.
Bye.
I don't even know where or how to wrap this one up. The visual of me in a little black dress, the fact that Tim hates those awesome packing tape sculptures, that I used to let kids fight in the gym with cardboard armor. I think the big takeaway is that sculpture units and curriculum can be crazy fun. It taps into our students' innate drive to be tinkerers, to play, and they don't get enough of that in their lives. So whether you adopt some of the big, goofy, weird, and creepy sculptures that Tim and I talked about, or maybe some of the more practical, introductory materials and techniques, you'll be happy you did, and so will your students. Art Ed Radio is developed, produced, and supported by the Art of Education with audio engineering by Michael Crocker. For fans of the podcast out there, do us a favor and give us a ranking or glowing review on iTunes, as this totally helps us find new listeners out there. As always, new episodes of Art Ed Radio are released every Tuesday, and additional content can be found under the podcast tab on theartofed.com. All right, thanks for listening.